All right, I just claimed host so I can launch this thing.
Cool.
All right, we're live.
Sweet.
I'll just assume that I'm going to mute this.
Yep.
Okay, cool. All right, welcome everyone. Q&A day, right? Today's Q&A day?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so as you're coming in, drop in a Q. We'll give you an A.
Some variation of an A.
What?
Some variation of an A.
Yeah, we'll give you some version of an A. Our version of an A.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna do the post, so.
Give people a minute here to just chime in.
Come on in, my
Hi, drop a question. What have you been thinking about recently?
Mm-hmm.
Don't be shy.
I heard you mention samsaras.
Yeah.
Today. That's from Untethered.
Yeah.
It's a big discussion. Well, not a discussion, but it's what Vipassana is all about.
Yeah. It's actually, I think the word is samskara.
It's a Sanskrit word it's basically the ties between your brain, and I ended up understanding it actually means Merkaba.
Well, I mean, the way that it's defined
Hold on 1 second. I gotta just do this real quick. Sorry, I can't do both.
Yeah. Kim is loving the new app, by the way. Thanks, Kim. We are too. We're getting some really, really great feedback on it, and I think it's just creating a really beautiful community. I highly encourage you guys, if you don't have the app, to definitely go get it. It's app.SatoriPrime.com, and there's an awesome community. So if you're kind of like sick of Facebook and all the shit that you don't want to hear or see, there's just an awesome conversation happening over in our community. So I highly encourage it.
Okay.
So can you listen to this real quick?
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready now.
So the word samskara comes from the prefix sam, means well planned, well thought out, and kara means the action undertaken. That's the actual broken up definition, but it basically means mental impression, recollection, psychological imprint.
Mm-hmm. That's what I'm saying. They talk about removing them in Vipassana, and what that essentially means is rolling back the wiring in the brain.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it was quite fascinating to hear about it, read about it, experience it, feel it. It's just been really, really cool. All right, guys. Good to see you too, Amy. Good to see Tim. Hey, Biljana. Let us know if you guys have questions. We're here to answer them. We've been on a roll recently with podcasts, and people have been asking us some really, really awesome questions.
Poignant, yeah.
Yeah.
Today has been a whirlwind of podcast interviews. We've done 3 hours of interviews today. I feel like we're on a movie or book tour or something. It's pretty funny. Thanks for the love on the app, Kim, by the way. Yeah, and for anybody who's jumping in right now, we have a new app in both the Apple and Google Store. You can just search SatoriPrime. There is a 10-part mini masterclass in there for your spiritual and personal development. That's free. And if you're on desktop, you can go to app.satoriprime.com, and you can sign up there as well. It's a pretty simple process, and app is super slick and really cool, and we're really all sorts of excited about the potential of what it allows us to do. So definitely jump on board, give us any feedback on it as well. It'll be very helpful if we know your experience of it. But there's a already a pretty large and thriving community of people on there connecting and communicating. So it's really, really cool. We're excited about that.
Yeah.
Okay. Until they pose a question, you want to start a conversation, and then something will spark, hopefully.
Sure. You got something top of mind? I usually come on these things pretty empty.
Your mind is empty?
No, I usually come on these things just like without any
agenda.
Yeah, when we do our Mondays, I have something in my head, but here I usually come like.
Yeah, I hear you. I don't have an agenda. I mean, I could speak into my own personal experience, but it's going to be really, really existential in nature. I've been just noticing a lot of strange phenomena for me in a good way. I mean, stuff that we've been talking about for months, but is suddenly getting a different level of clarity. Like, I don't have any articulation for what's happening to me right now. And maybe not happening to me, happening for me. And yet I've been at the request of something like this for a really long time. I suddenly find myself in this really calm state, more so than ever before, I think. I think coming out of Colombia, there was the sense of the masculine, feminine starting to dance. Mm-hmm. That seems to suddenly have anchored in a new way, where I can almost stand and almost be the masculine, watch the feminine dance, and then choosing to be the feminine, and then watch the feminine dance, choosing to watch the masculine dance. I just noticed even the last few days during podcast interviews, there's been a way in which I've been expressing some of our work that's even I'm like, whoa, where is that coming from? Because I've never quite articulated things that way before, and it just seems to keep happening, like I'm channeling from a new place. And that's been really exciting. And I think that takes me back to what the gift that the trauma is. It's almost like the deeper the trauma, if you're willing to stay with it, be present to it, and go through the emotional experiences that it's providing, there's just a lot to be taken away from those things. And for those of you guys who keep up with us, the last 10 weeks of my life have been, I'd say 9-10 weeks have probably been the most challenging emotional experiences I've had in 25, 26 years, really since I was a kid. And it's because those things came back up again. And what I've noticed, I think what's interesting about doing the type of work that we do is we get to communicate with a lot of people all over the world, and in the developmental aspect, even yesterday on our coaching, the group coaching, what came up for everybody, and how everyone's right at the precipice of the biggest breakthrough of their life, that the thing that's been running the show since they were 5 to 9 years old is right there for them, is exactly in line with where I feel that I am. And when I go back and look at the last few months and I kind of just investigate with people, I'm like, well, how has it been going through the beginning of this year? It's everybody goes through this experience together. I'm constantly at awe of how universally there's an energy available, and it's just the energy that's been available is of you're going to go to your trauma and then you're going to heal like crazy. You're not really going to know what the fuck is going on after that. But there is this amazing opportunity for re-identification. I mean, to the point where everybody around me out here is suddenly I could see them almost take a step back going whoa, what happened over here? Because I've shifted so hard so quickly. And we were having dinner yesterday, and I had, along with me, 2 friends that just came out of relationships, and same exact kind of languaging is coming out of them. It's this was the relationships where people learn how to love, even if they weren't the right relationships for them. And then suddenly there's this like new person coming online, and the pain leads to all the gratitude about how big of a thing that was to experience it themselves, to know that. So I find that fascinating. I don't know if everybody else gets exposed to that, because like I feel fortunate to be living in a place where everyone easily expresses those things, and it's a common conversation to be had. So it's like I get to notice that a lot more, where, you know, when I was in New York or elsewhere outside of our peer group, that just wasn't available to me.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just noticing, like you said, what happened yesterday in our academy was pretty incredible, just to see what people are going through. And I think what's the opportunity that's presented itself to people, people are going to be, I think, in one of two places. One, they're going to see it as opportunity. And the opportunity, I don't think necessarily is going to come in this like rainbow packaged, feel good, box of sorts. I think it's really going to be like a little bit of a kick in the nuts. And I think it's up to people to kind of see that kick in the nuts as a, as I say in our presentation, like gift wrapped box. I think the step that people will have a choice in taking is whether they take action on it or not. And that's kind of what I saw open up yesterday in our academy. It's like, it's one thing to talk about it and notice it. It's a whole other level to take the necessary action to move through that thing. And I find that that's where people have been right now.
That's been beautiful to watch, honestly. Yeah, I mean, so for those of you guys who are on here right now listening, I would love to just get some feedback. Like, what is your, what's this year been like for you? Yesterday I saw a line and I said I wanted a podcast about like for the reason for the phoenix to rise, like they're like something about the phoenix rising and like having to burn in order for that to happen. And it's just been super, super. I have to say this has been like the most interesting 3 months of my life because of that. And it's on the, like, this has been years in the making, but also like months of this swirl. Here's the ironic part. You know how we talk about like the lessons keep coming back, right? Over and over again. So like this relationship kept coming back into my life, and it's really unusual that I keep going back into a relationship. Like I've never done that before. I've never had someone leave, come back, leave, come back, leave, come back, and all that kind of stuff. Because I've always been a no to that. I always thought that was like really silly to do. I'm like, just move forward. And yet I was a yes to it every single time. And, in January, I went through that really difficult period and then kind of like had declared that thing. But I see that I did like my masculine approach to it. And like that declaration intervened with the process a little bit. And then furthermore, I did DMT like less than a week later. And DMT completed that for me and really intervened with the process. So it's like I almost didn't have to like deal with whatever was going to come after that would have arisen out of that response. And then it's like, sure enough, here comes the relationship again. It's like, oh, by the way, you're not done yet, and like brought it back around again to look at it one more time. And I just find it fascinating that it's like, if you're looking, you just can't hide. You can't hide from this stuff. It will seek you out and it will, put you into the degree of integrity that you're looking for, and it'll do it in circumstances, whether you like them or not. It doesn't really matter. Yeah.
I think there's I would just word it differently. It's not whether you want it or not. I think you've requested it and asked for it, whether you're aware and consciously aware enough that you actually requested and asked for it. That's a whole different story.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, look, the human mind is always going to have its opinion, right?
Yeah.
On whether or not that's good event, a bad event. It didn't. Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember a time where something didn't feel that good, and yet I could just be with it and not run from it, which my mind wanted to do a lot, and I kept bringing it back and just kept telling myself, that nothing is forever. Just be with it and start extracting what you need from this, or like what there is to see from it. And I can't say I'm fully done with what I believe my process needs to be. And I think this is another important thing to like look at is when we're in these kind of situations, how permanent they feel, and how quickly. And notice how quickly they start. How you can go from feeling really good to just being like, I'm a fucking mess right now. And then also how much it shifts. Like last Monday, and again, like really vulnerable here, I was shooting a message. Like I was like crying, basically, like sobbing over this. And then that conversation, because something felt incomplete, I ended up like contacting her, sharing something, and I just started like bawling in the middle of sharing this thing. and just felt like totally broken down from it. And one of the things I've really learned over these last 6 months, specifically, even I would say these last few weeks, is like support. I'm just so over holding it all together as like the one-man show. And that honestly, that's funny because that came out of me giving less feedback to people. I've realized like by like being that person that gives feedback to people all the time is the reason I haven't had space for that. Because then like that's how I've trained people that I am. And when I'm going through shit, like I can't show up that way because I've already trained them that I'm that person, right? So I like kind of like gave up that context. That's what I'm saying. It's like this nice little snowball effect of all these things that happened. And it's like now I'm a little bit out of the bubble, so I'm really starting to see like how it all had a relationship to one another. I guess my point is like that was last Monday, and today it's Wednesday, so we're talking. It's been 9 days, and just like the radical shift in energy that suddenly became available to me, even last week already, but even moving into this week is just like it's awe-striking to me, seriously, like from full on breakdown to empowerment and. I don't know. Yeah, it's funny. Like I'm suddenly having resistance to the word empowerment because I feel like I had thrown a lot of emphasis on that being important, and to a degree it is important. But it's like when I discovered for myself that transformation is not significant. It's like I suddenly discovered empowerment is really not either.
Yeah,
like being in an empowered state is not significantly important. And I've put a lot on it because every time like I fall out of it, it's like I've been like scrambling to get back to that place. And then what it's like intrinsically done is like it's made being a hot mess difficult because it's like that's the important thing. Get the fuck back over there. And I think I've circumvented a lot of lessons in my life by not being with the experience and being more it being more important to get back to that place. Do you know what I'm saying? It's almost like it slowed the velocity of the lessons that were in place because I'm like, oh, I'll just go and become powerful again.
It's like that game, you know, where Landmark talks about the game of life and how it was boring. So then we had to make being over there more important than being over here.
Yeah,
that's what it reminded me of.
Totally. Yeah, and then there's like this essence of like. So there's this new like thing coming online. Like I was with Dr. Matt yesterday doing network spinal analysis, and he's so sharp on this kind of stuff, like with energy, and like he's dead on. Like everything he's ever told me, I'm like, dude, you're dead on. He's standing next to me. He's like, so something's coming online. He goes and he's like, I don't have any clear sense of what's about to happen to you. He's like, I have a feeling. You have no idea what's coming next. That's exactly how I feel. I literally feel like I took a fucking sledgehammer to what I would call a foundation. And I'm not giving myself feedback on what I believe the new foundation will be. Like I'm literally going on faith and being that it's going to be formed to my highest and best. And it's been really great is all I can say. I'm like suddenly noticing myself have like a lot of different emotions. Things are slowing down for me. A lot of my friends yesterday even remarked that like you just seem much calmer suddenly. There's like a frazzle, obviously. I was like, you know, frantic before. So yeah, I don't know. It's exciting. And I guess my thing for everybody who's listening here is, you know, how much we avoid pain and trauma where it really is the place where like all the gold is, because all that pain and trauma is taking you right back to your core programming. And if you're willing to sit and look and really like, if, you know, we apply the rules of success, like stand in no result longer than anybody else, most people are just not allowing themselves to stand in an emotion. This shouldn't be here right now. This, you know, I need to get the fuck out of here. And it's like, no, just stand in it. And just see what you've never allowed yourself to see by going through that experience.
Yeah. I just want to read what Amy actually responded to your question, which is, she wrote, "This year has been one of amazing expansion for me after a year of incredible inner turmoil that I really came to realize I brought upon myself. Taking responsibility for that and going back through life events and seeing my responsibility in all things, my creation of my own life has changed everything. It's funny, that's what we were actually saying today on the podcast, right? Mm-hmm. I've had friends remark how different I look and feel from a year and a half ago. At the same time, there are and will always be layers to go through. And she wrote, oh my God, Guy Ferdman, we are so similar. I totally relate to what you're saying with being the one to give feedback and so not being available to receiving. Mm-hmm. And then Anya just wrote, Guy, thank you so much for sharing your process and what you're going through, your raw and honest experience, because many times we don't really know what men go through after a breakup, as many men don't openly share that. And there's this idea that only women go through turmoil after breakup. Thank you so much for opening my eyes that men can have deep emotions related to relationships. How interesting.
Yeah, I think that's really beautiful. I think it's a dirty lie that men don't go through that stuff. I think that we just go through it differently. Yeah. And mostly like men, we're not trained to process our emotions.
Or share them.
Yeah, we're trained to stuff them.
Yep.
You know, like boys don't cry. That's something you hear at a really young age. I remember making those choices. Like that's the thing to do. And when you don't have life experience and an adult is telling you that, you take it as church, you take it as fact. Like, okay, boys don't cry. And you find ways to do that. Like, I'll give you an example. I have one ticklish part of my body, and I'm going to let you guys guess where that is. I'm not going to tell you. And I'm not ticklish in the places that other people are super ticklish on. And you know why that is? Because I'm the younger brother. That's why. I literally biologically, I remember training myself that like this part of me won't tickle, because if it tickled, this one over here would have destroyed me with those things, you know, and he would have done it relentlessly, because that's what older brothers do to younger brothers. And I'm really not that putting that on him. It's just kind of funny, but it's the same thing. Like sometimes people touch me and they're like, how are you not ticklish there? And I'm like, I'm a younger brother. like
Ilan Ferdman did it.
That one. So yeah, I think like, you know, it's taken a lot of work. I mean, the softening that I've seen in Ilan and myself since March, because of that experience we had down in Colombia. I mean, it's only been, I don't know, 4 months, I guess now, since then. Barely, not even. Yeah, just
actually, like we came out of the jungle exactly 4 months ago. Yeah,
like rolling up on 4 months right now. I mean, between a time where some kind of process starts and where you really start mapping it into your everyday, it takes time. I mean, 4 months is nothing. But I say, and to move from that kind of experience into what's going on now is really beautiful. So I'll just say for me, like Ilan and I got blasted wide open into like our feminine energy like 4 months ago. And that created a state of vulnerability. And at that time and currently, like the circumstances of our life have been so good that I don't know about you, but I say that I lived in about an ecstatic state of joy for close to 2 months. I'd say about 7 weeks.
I still feel like I'm there.
Okay, great for you. So, but I got kicked, right? Like I had this like situation that came back into my life, and I invited it back in. Like I knew that was a possibility. I didn't know I would have that kind of response to it. And then I took that vulnerability and went into like this really like painful place with it. However, it remained, and I got to kind of experience what it's like to go through like trauma and turmoil and that energy, which is really brand new to me. And that's created this really, or it's starting to create, I should say, this really interesting experience of balance that I personally have just never had energetically. So it's been interesting. And I think it's retraining. There's all sorts of stuff that happens with women too, that is just stuff taken at face value from a really young age about how a woman's supposed to show up and who she needs to be and how you get to express yourself. And, you know, all of it is up for inquiry and investigation in terms of, does that really align for who you are and where you see yourself going? And if it doesn't, then why are you still doing that?
Yeah. And I just want to point out to, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, Anya. I just want to point out to you and everyone else who's listening that if you could just get, right? So here's what happened. You heard Guy share something, and that expanded your mind to what you believe is possible in the world, specifically in the world of men, right? That's what you were basically speaking into. Consider that that story, that understanding that it seems like men are this way created a very certain reality for you. And then thanks to Guy sharing the way he just shared, that kind of dismantled the world that you believed, because now you were witnessing someone do something that previously you thought men weren't doing. Now, here's the thing, like, we all have these things that it seems to me that this is the way the world is. This is the way this person is, or these types of people are, or whatever it is, right? I will tell you that media does this incredibly well. Media likes to create generalizations about entire populaces and entire circumstances and just feed you that. And then you then believe it. Like, I went to Cuba, and while in Cuba, we had a tour guide, a private tour guide. And this private tour guide was obviously Cuban and had lived there all his life and was probably in his 40s or so, and was telling me all these amazing things about Fidel Castro. And I'm listening through this filter of, like, Fidel Castro is like one of the most evil men on the planet, right? Like, that's my filter. And I'm trying to listen to this stuff and I'm like, this guy's crazy. And then one day we're sitting there and he's like, hey, if you get a chance, read this thing. And I couldn't pull it up on my phone. So the next day he brought it. He brought me like a photo of it. And I read it. And it was beautiful. Like, it was an excerpt from a speech he gave in the year 2000 about how he defines revolution. And it was jaw-droppingly good. Let me see if I can actually find it, because I was just like, wow, this is incredible. Let me just give me like a second here. Let me see, because I think I actually took a snapshot of it. It'd be amazing to share that with you guys. Here. All right, so I'm going to read you something, okay? This is what he wrote. This is Fidel. So he says, revolution is having a sense of the historic moment. It is changing everything that must be changed. It is full equality and freedom. It is being treated and treating others like human beings. It is emancipating ourselves on our own and through our own efforts. It is challenging powerful dominant forces in and beyond the social and national arena. It is defending the values in which we believe at the price of any sacrifice. It is modesty, selflessness, altruism, solidarity, and heroism. We believe at the price of any sacrifice. It is fighting with courage, intelligence, and realism. It is never lying or violating ethical principles. A profound conviction that there is no power in the world that can crush the power of truth and ideas. Revolution is unity. It is independence. It is struggling for our dreams of justice for Cuba and for the world, which is the foundation of our patriotism, our socialism, and our internationalism. So here's what happens. How cool is that? Like, how brilliant is that, right? Like, I don't know. If that's the shit you talk about and that's how you write, like, you're at a fucking level, you know? And so I read this thing and I'm realizing as I'm reading it that it's just like, I can actually feel in my brain, like, all of this propaganda. And I honestly, like, I know nothing about Fidel Castro. So I don't know what he did. I don't know what he didn't do. All I know that I live in a country that he was public enemy number one for a long time. And so because of that, you know, I've been programmed like Fidel is a very bad man. I'm reading this and I just get struck by this notion, like, I don't know anything about Fidel Castro. And if I knew nothing about him, and that's the first thing I ever read or heard him say, I'd be like, I'm interested to find out more about what this man has to say. You know, not like he's a douchebag, evil man. The exact opposite. And so, Ania, the reason I'm bringing this up is, like, we all have these preconceived notions, and it's really good to test and poke and prod at the things that you hold most true. Like, anytime you find yourself like, this is the way this person is, or that is the way the situation is, if you could just kind of take a step back and go, well, is that absolutely true? And if it weren't, what could be true? Because right now, I'm assuming your world will be very, very different, knowing that not only Guy does this, but many, many, many men go through this. We've coached men through some serious heartbrokenness, like sopping pools of nothing on the ground heartache, you know? Human beings, right? Like our heart breaks and it hurts. So I just invite you all to just maybe today, this week, the rest of this week, investigate and look at, okay, what's something that I hold so absolutely true? And if you really want to shake your life to a core and just have incredible experience, give up that you know who your parents are. Give up that you know who your siblings are or who your spouse is. Give up that you know anything about them and come at it from like a brand new, like if you're on a first date and see what that experience of them is like. It will blow your mind.
Expand your mind.
Expand your mind, sorry.
Yeah. I think that's super powerful. I don't want to make any assumptions about what she does or does not know or what her experience is. I don't think that ultimately matters. I think one of the most important conversations I ever got to be a part of was listening to women share about their process with puberty and men doing the same thing in that room. And I could just see like light bulbs and empathy going off in that room because we're just so not sensitive to each other's turmoil, especially through those years, because it's like women just assume that men are going through something similar and they just have less, more hair than they do. Men assume that women are going through the same thing that they're going through and they just have less hair than they do. And the truth is, biologically, we're built really different, specifically around communication, specifically around sex and aggression, really, really different in those mechanisms. Because, technically everyone's a woman, but it's just, testosterone, estrogen pretty much determine these things. And there becomes, I think there's space given for things. Like there's all kinds of men, just like there's all kinds of women. And at the end of the day, like a not good man is a man who's got a lot of shit, trauma that's been unprocessed and not dealt with. And there's a lot of women and the same shit, right? And I think it's way too easy to be hypocritical of people and judgmental of them. And then the next day we're doing the same exact thing that we were just adamant that, no, they should never do that thing. Or the fact is we actually end up doing that thing right after they do that thing because it gives us permission. Like, if you've ever been, I'm sure you have been, like cut off in a vehicle and then you start chasing that person down the highway like a crazy person, yelling at them.
Guilty.
You just got upset that they just did that. And then in the next second, you're doing the very thing that you just got upset about them doing. It's so ironic how we do that. Like somebody's angry at us, it gives us permission to be angry, right? And we're funny like that. And there doesn't have to be anything, but there could be an opportunity for like space to kind of like laugh at it. Like I have not been laughing a lot the last few months because it was just so fucking painful. But there were like moments of light where I'm like, this is not significant. Now, it's one thing to understand things logically. It's another thing to let go of an experience like emotionally, sensationally within the body. And that's just, I think with heartbreak, it's one of those things that it just does. It just takes time. It's funny because in January, I was like, no, you declare it, that shifts it and da-da-da-da-da. And now I'm kind of like, all right, time. Like, okay, fine. I guess I think that's like the masculine, I want things now approach, give me. And then there's more of the feminine, which is like the patience and the softness and like the care and the love and all those kind of things. And I don't know that either one is more right than the other. I think it's valuable to have both experiences.
Yeah.
Because now it's like both sides get their healing work done, I guess.
Yeah. Awesome, man. So we got no questions today.
All right.
I'm feeling a bit sad.
Yeah, well, is there any questions, guys? Like any questions, feedback, anything on what we discussed here? Usually we just come on and answer questions, but there were none propagated, so. Any questions?
Okay,
so
can you tell me if I'm saying your name right or if I'm not? So Ania said, thank you so much for following up on my content. So what's the best way, maybe your best way, to break down some of those ideas and limiting beliefs we have around other areas in our lives? It's basically exactly like I said. It's a matter of just getting that all of the thoughts that you have, you've made up. There's nothing that is factual. It's all piecemeal that your brain took from what you saw, what you heard, what you felt, all of it, and just mashed it up into like a ball of things that you believe. So every time you're at least open to say, okay, like this is a bottle, right? I'm making a very extreme example, but like, how do I know that this is a bottle? How do I know what this is used for? Right? And you just start investigating. So like with people, here's the thing. You have it that your husband is lazy, right? And you have all the proof in the world that he's lazy. And guess what? Your vision of him as being lazy creates him as being lazy. Like if you could take on that you're responsible for him being lazy through your creation. Now, if you see someone a certain way, can they ever be any other way? No, they can't. They can only ever be that way. So if you choose, you can be responsible. Like, I see my husband as a fun-loving, incredibly, I don't know, sexy man, right? And then just play with that and see what happens. And go into that room and have that context for that conversation and see how he shows up. And if that doesn't work, try something new. If that doesn't work, try something new. And you just keep playing with it, and you just realize that like you are the creator of your own reality. And the more you realize you're the creator of your own reality, the more power you end up having. So it's just like a fun game. There's nothing, don't make it significant. There's nothing wrong. Don't beat yourself up. It's just what we do. We're humans.
Yep. I'll also say, like, I think everything you see externally of yourself is some kind of reflection of an internal belief, and anything that could possibly make you upset in this world about the same or opposite sex can only possibly have power and dominion over you because you internally have not completed that within yourself. If you could get to a place in your life where your whole experience of yourself was nothing but self-love, gentleness, appreciation, it wouldn't even matter what's happening out here, because there would be no impact on you. You know, like enlightened beings, I go read like Yogananda's book, you know, and just like kind of get the essence of it. Or if you've ever been around one, I still haven't seen one, but like when that state is described of somebody who's in like the blissful state, there's no upset anymore. And it's not like upsetting things that don't stop happening in the world. They're not upset because they're so whole within their experience, like nothing can get you. So I think the aha here is that if you're upset about somebody doing something, whether it's to you or elsewhere in the world, that should be the, oh shit, that's what I get to work on. That's what I get to work on. Oh, wow, look, they're so mean and angry over there. It's like, oh, where do I show up mean and angry? Because if that was complete over here, you wouldn't even notice that stuff.
Yeah.
It would be water off a duck's back. It would just trickle away from you. You'd move through it seamlessly. You wouldn't even care to make it part of your experience. And that's what we end up doing. The biology is so funny of it. It's like we vilify people going, you're doing this, I'm not that way. And the truth is that that's where you're incomplete about yourself and where you can approach it and apply and show more love to yourself so that can get released and you could stop doing that. So it's really good to ask yourself, like when you're upset at somebody or something, it's like, okay, well, when do I show up that way? When's the last time I could look at a circumstance where I showed up that way? Because then you'll be like, oh, fuck, I do that too. Right? And then it's like, and it's in that place where the gold is for you to look at, you know, reframe it, have a new paradigm shift around it, but even more importantly is like feel what there is to feel about it. And honestly, like that ability to feel through is where you really increase your existence of self-worth. And that's really, once that's programmed in, is where magic I see starts happening for people, and me included.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome, broski. You got anything else?
No, I'm good. Unless there's any other questions in there, which I currently don't see.
So I just want to invite you guys, if you haven't been already, tomorrow evening at 8 p.m., we're going to be doing the second go-around of our newly released training about the 5 pillars to having it all in your life. We talk about our 100-day masterclass, which is something we just unleashed. So if you haven't been able to come join us live due to some time constraints or whatever it is, we're just trying to test different times of when we can get people from all over the world. So tomorrow is going to be at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So it's New York time. If you haven't registered for it yet, you can go to SatoriPrime.com/register, and we'll let you know. You'll get a link, and yeah.
There's actually one more question here, and I think it's a really good one.
Okay.
So Amy says, I'm finding that I continue to slide back into behaviors that I logically know I don't want to do and catch myself, but have not yet been able to really transcend them. Advice, steps. Okay, so Amy, same thing here, right? Like there's 2 ways to approach anytime that we do something that we perceive as like, it shouldn't be this way. There's the masculine, which is like beating ourselves up about it, right? Like, okay, I should do better. I know how to do better. I want a quick result. Then there's the feminine, which is like the gentleness and like, I'm going to fiercely feel whatever there's to feel. When you look, no matter how big of a breakthrough you have, you could have a complete epiphany and be like, what? Like, I've been like, how? And I'm not going to do that again. I mean, chances are, like, if that like, I'm 33 years old, almost 34. There is, I would guess, with what I've been going through now, probably about 26 to 27 years worth, if not more, of programming that has been reaffirmed for nearly 3 decades. Okay. Suddenly I get into this new experience. I start feeling things I haven't wanted to feel. I'm telling you right now, since I was 9 years old, go through all that. It creates all this energistic space because energy in the body gets held onto stuff. And unless we're willing to, like, extricate it somehow, it's in there. And then 2 things can't occupy the same space at the same time. So like, here I am in this re-identification process. I'm not telling you that, like, I'm not slipping back into old habits, or that I'm not getting feedback from my environment that's still saying like, hey, you're still showing up in certain ways. Not everything is hunky-dory. Yeah, or it is hunky-dory actually, because both are right. If I like, I'm going to move into this new state right now, and I'm clear that I am, and I don't know what that means right now. However, if I get to this new state, whatever you want to call it, there's nowhere to get to. I'm just using that language. And then I start using this state as like, this is my new way of being. And next time I get upset about something and show like an old pattern, I start getting angry about that, or that I make that wrong, then I didn't transform anything. I just had myself a little convergence event. Because now if this becomes my new bar for what's right and everything else is wrong, I'm just setting myself up for a world of upset. The old programming is in, babe, right? Fear, frustration, overwhelm, all of it. It's programmed in. It ain't going nowhere. It's about finding ways to love it and come to peace with it, that when it shows up, you're just as gentle with yourself as when you're in the heightened state. When you're in the state that you want to be in, gentle, easy, peaceful, calm, right? Then that other shit happens and you go, you know what? I'm still going to be gentle, easy, calm, I'm not going to lose my shit over it and be like, I need to be a perfect human being. So if you can imagine, you have all this wiring in one part of the brain, and then you have an epiphany, some of the wiring comes loose, right? But that stuff is still programmed in between the mind and the body, and there's all sorts of subconscious triggers. So it might be like you feel great for 2 years, then you see like a blue truck out of the corner of your eye, and your brain's like, fucking shit, fucker, guck, and you go right back into your old stuff. However, with the new insight and new emotional states and new patterning, like a thought processes, you're starting to create a new neural connective, pathway, and whatever you want to call it. I don't know, just like a new organism in the brain that's giving you access to all these new ways of being and acting and etc. So over time, it's like a transference of energy, right? Like energy can't be destroyed, it can't be created. It just transfers itself from one thing to the next, just like hot and cold. So if this thing is firing all the time and it's hot, and then you have this new thing coming online, but it's small and it's cold, right? Because it's not getting activated a lot. over time, as you put more focus and more presence of mind and a body onto this new thing, and you take actions consistent with this new way of being, it starts firing more and it gets hot. And this transference of energy happens from one to the other. So you're not going to be like an overnight hit. However, that shift in focus over time will move that energy to the point where like this one will get big and this one will start shrinking, almost to the point where it barely ever fires ever again, right? Like I dealt with depression and suicide. I think one of the reasons I was scared to go back into this emotional place, because when I did this emotion when I was younger, and granted, I had no awareness, right? It just kind of happened. It led me to seemingly depression and suicide. That means that for my life, I've been avoiding at all costs feeling those things because of fear of the outcome it created for me. Now I'm in a place in my life where I have enough awareness that I realize like, oh man, I could go through that stuff. I'm not going to go there. And even if I do, I'll deal with that too. Right? I'll be more aware this time. It'll give me access to something this time. So it's like the worst thing you can do is use a Satori moment, use a moment of transformation, and then use it as like, this is my righteousness now. What I was before, totally fucked up and wrong. No, it's like complete that. So even from here, that little boy, that little girl, whatever that is, just feels just as good as where you are right now. That's the holistic approach. I love all of it, surrendering to all of it. It's not one is better than the other.
Yep.
Cool.
Very, very well said.
Cool. All right, my friends, we love you. This week is flying by as they do. I hope you guys are enjoying your experiences. Like Ilan said, we have a webinar at SatoriPrime.com/register. That webinar is tomorrow at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. We cover the 5 pillars of transformation. And that leads into our 100-day masterclass, but it's a great conversation. We invite you to be there. Whether or not you're interested in the masterclass, and you probably don't even know what it is. So how could you know if you're interested? And number 2 is we have the app. It's down in the comment box there. That's the desktop link right there. But there's also the app in your iOS and Google store. Just type Satori Prime in there and you'll find it. And there's actually a 10-part mini masterclass in there. And you also get immediate access to our community, which is like thriving in there. So you can be sharing and, getting in conversation with inspired people and inspiring people just like yourself. And we're absolutely loving it so far. So pop in there. It's brand new and it's got the sizzle. All right, my friends. We love you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Great day.